My name is Nadira Ilana. I am a filmmaker from Kota Kinabalu, Sabah. And so a little bit about the work that I've done. So for the last decade, I have been doing stories that are fiction and non-fiction, but primarily sort of exploring my own heritage as a Dusun person, but also as, I guess, a young Malaysian. So a little bit about how I started is that I, like a lot of people who started making films, I just loved cinema, and I really just wanted to go and learn what the process was really like. And then it wasn't until much later when I sort of discovered Southeast Asian cinema, and I wanted to kind of like go home to Malaysia because I was studying abroad at the time. I was studying abroad and I discovered Southeast Asian films, and I realized that I really wanted to tell stories that are from home. But the thing was that when it came to Malaysian stories, a lot of the stories were very peninsula-centric, and like that goes the same for our history books and our media just in general. And so when I made The Silent Riot in 2013, for myself, or at least for, as a person from my generation, it was the first time that I had ever seen a Sabahan on a big screen. And it was because I had made the film myself. And so that sort of like started my journey in, trying to explore, identity, why it was that, even as like a young Dusun person, I grew up not learning my language or not knowing anything about my heritage. I think at the beginning it was very difficult for me to sort of like introduce people in KL to Sabah stories, because at the time, people would just still say, oh, you're from Sabah, welcome to Malaysia, or they don't think of us as part of Malaysia. And I think that when people saw my stories as well, they were a little bit conflicted. People had such strange expectations of what an East Malaysian story is or should look like, because they were so used to sort of seeing us in the context of sort of like tourism ads or your pakai cawat or living in the jungle, that kind of thing, that it was very unimaginable for many of them to sort of see us in an urban setting. They didn't have any context for my stories, for my history, for my traumas. I also put together a short film, East Malaysian short film program, which was screened at Urbanscapes a couple of years ago. And that was kind of like the first time some people said that they watched like Sabahan and Sarawakian short films back to back. And it was only from there that people sort of realized that East Malaysians have a voice of our own. I think it's very difficult for people to see like a young woman who's like so aggressive, or I think maybe another word for it would be passionate. I think people who are not affected, they see like, oh, she's very passionate. But then people who are on the receiving end would think I'm aggressive, obviously. But it has to be said, because the thing is like that oppression to me and to my people is just so direct in your face. Like I remember when I first started, people were like, what is Malaysia Day? Why do we have to celebrate Malaysia Day? Malaysia Day is just for Sabah and Sarawak, and that is very offensive to me, especially because, well, I am Malaysian. I grew up singing Negaraku. I grew up, with the Rukun Negara, and, like listening to all the other Malaysian bands anybody else has listened to here, and to sort of have my own industry tell me that I don't belong as part of this nation's narrative is very hurtful. I believe that everybody deserves to have a voice and to be able to be free from that sort of like oppression or sort of like bullying. And it should have been scary to say, or I could have offended more people, or people would say that I would lose a lot of jobs for it. But I think what's come from it is that I've been very, very fortunate to have good people, even all the way up to kind of like the federal level, who believe in what I have to say. And at the end of the day, I hope that as a filmmaker, what I would like to champion, or what I would like to be able to provide, is that anybody of any status, any heritage, like even if they're refugees or like immigrants or anything, like that they can, or LGBT even, that they can actually find room to tell their own stories. Because Malaysia sudah merdeka, so why not? Yeah, and I think that that's actually really the true spirit of independent filmmaking. So, of course I'm biased, I'm always on about Sabah, but it's mostly just because Sabah is, where I come from, and those are the stories I know or I want to know more about. But then I'll go wherever the story tells me. If you're hiring me, like I'm available. But actually 2 years ago, we did a story called Anak Pokok, which was for TRCRC, this NGO, Tropical Rainforest and Conservation Research Center in Taman Tun. And so Anak Pokok sort of follows a couple of their recruits, I guess you could call them. What the NGO does is that they actually get young people from the kampong to teach them about the conservation of Malaysia's rare species of trees. And I find that really exciting because just in general, I think that people in rural areas are so overlooked. And I think that indigenous people, native people, people who still live in nature, they are actually such an important link to us. The problem with film is that film tends to be a very sort of urban-centric, there's only certain people of a certain privilege get to tell those stories through film. But I like the idea of being able to take a lens and then shine them on, the real heroes who are the people who are doing the conservation work, the people who are actually remembering our roots as human beings, that we are, tied to nature. And so Anak Pokok, and the English title is Saplings, it went to the KL Eco Film Fest, but then after that it screened at the South by Southwest community screening, and then we got second prize for that community screening. And the coolest thing is that one of the judges was Richard Linklater, who's done the Before Sunrise and Before Sunset series and everything. So I grew up sort of watching his films, and he watched ours, from Malaysia, and gave us a prize for it. So no issues telling stories in West Malaysia. I think that a good story is a good story. Yeah.